And so I'm proud. I'm kind of happy, the people of the United States kind of rose up yesterday and showed that we're not going to stand for it. And I think it bodes well for the 26 elections when we Democrats need desperately to win one or the other or both houses of Congress.
After last night's results, the decision facing all Americans could not be more clear. We have a choice between communism and common sense. Does that make sense to you? Common sense. It's common sense or communism.
It's Governor J.B. Pritzker and President Donald Trump reacting to Tuesday's elections in other parts of the country that went to Democrats. We didn't have elections here in Illinois. Our next election isn't until the March primary, which we've got lots to talk about between now and then for all kinds of races, from U.S. Senate to Congress to State House. But you also, have the political prognosticators saying, hey, government shutdown's looking bad for Republicans. Democrats are going to sweep in Tuesday's elections in New York and Virginia and elsewhere throughout the country. And looks like at least the prognosticators may have been onto something. But it's led President Donald Trump to essentially say, listen, the government shutdown is hurting us, not just politically, but it's hurting the country. Senate Republicans end the filibuster. So that's what we're talking about today. It is Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Final segment for the live show today, which I want to remind people I'm off tomorrow. And then I'm off all of next week, but we will be back after next week for more live Illinois in Focus Daily. So like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Go to thecentersquare.com where you can get the headlines in your inbox each and every weekday morning. Just go to, again, thecentersquare.com. Click newsletter, and you can sign up for that. But also, I want to point you to another website, clips.thecentersquare.com, where you can find news clips, some of which we air here with Illinois in Focus Daily. So be sure to check that out as well, and you can subscribe and get a daily digest there. All right, so the elections. You had Democrats sweep. Governor J.B. Pritzker held 3 events unrelated yesterday, but in one of them later in the day, he talked about the election outcome after being asked during Q&A.
First of all, what an incredible win for Democrats. Maybe there were people more optimistic than I was. I was hopeful, but I did not think that that Democrats could win the governorship in Virginia by 15 percentage points in a purple state. I didn't think that after all the polls that happened in New Jersey that showed that was going to be a real close race, that Mikey Sherrill was going to win the governorship by 13 points. And I think, and those are just 2 examples, but I can give you others, like the public utilities commissioners, 2 of them elected in Georgia. I know people here may not have paid attention to it, but I met those folks. And by the way, the 2 Democrats of Republican state, those 2 Democrats that ran for those 2 seats won by 20 percentage points. So something happened yesterday that is, I think, remarkable. And I think it was a reaction, in part, to what's happening from Washington, D.C., and what's the kind of oppression that's being put down on the states, both economically and otherwise. People's rights are being taken away. People's programs that they rely upon are being taken away. As you know, right now, what are we at, November 5th today? Well, that's 5 days after they stopped providing SNAP benefits, food benefits to people who really need it. We have 1.9 million people in the state of Illinois who get some measure of SNAP benefits. Some people, this is the only thing they have to pay for food, and it's all gone away. And worse than that is that we went to court. We got a court to rule that they needed to use the emergency funds to restore SNAP benefits, and you know what the Trump administration did? They said, we're only going to provide 50% of the money that's necessary. And by the way, that doesn't mean that everybody who is getting it is now getting 50% of what they're getting, which would be bad enough. No, we're also going to change the eligibility for people. So some people are going to get 0, and some people will get half of what they were getting before. And honestly, it's like, if this is all you had and you're getting 50% of it, how are you going to survive? So we're doing everything we can at the state level to try to supplement that. But I think the reaction yesterday in the elections was about people understanding that government does play an important role, and that Donald Trump is acting like the leader of an authoritarian regime, who does not care about the people that he is supposed to be representing and leading. And so I'm proud. I'm kind of happy. The people of the United States kind of rose up yesterday and showed that we're not going to stand for it. And I think it bodes well for the 26 elections when we Democrats need desperately to win one or the other or both houses of Congress.
So again, Pritzker praising the outcome of the election Tuesday in other parts of the country. President Donald Trump having a different reaction yesterday.
After last night's results, the decision facing all Americans could not be more clear. We have a choice between communism and common sense. Does that make sense to you? Common sense. It's common sense or communism. And you take a look back 1,000 years, it hasn't worked. If it worked, we'd be using it, I guess, but it hasn't worked. Our opponents are offering an economic nightmare. We're delivering an economic miracle. We have delivered in 9 months. This is the biggest investment of funds in a country in history by many times.
So the president heralding what he says is his economic accomplishments during his first 9 months of his second non-consecutive term. But all kinds of things that people are going to be thinking about after especially the election in New York City with a Democrat socialist getting elected mayor and Governor J.B. Pritzker reacting to not just that, but also the idea of government-run grocery stores. The governor was at a grocery store in Venice, Illinois, that got $2 million of taxpayer funds to help build the grocery store. It's not going to be state-run, but state taxpayers are really starting the engine there for that grocery store. Here's the governor kind of distinguishing between that concept of using tax dollars granting to a private business versus a government just running the place.
So what we're doing is lowering the amount of risk and making sure, look, these things are better run if they're run by private companies. I've always believed that government isn't always the best option if there's a private sector option. And so what we're trying to do is reduce the risk, bring the private sector in and make it available to the people who live here in Venice. I don't disagree with you that sometimes government doesn't do it as well as the private sector, but I also believe that government has to do some things to help the private sector be successful. For example, private sector doesn't build your roads. I'm a capitalist. I'm somebody who was in business before I became governor. I'm not a believer that government should do everything, but there are some things government has to do.
And one thing government does do is draw maps for congressional seats. Another outcome of the election yesterday in California, voters approved allowing for their congressional maps to change ahead of the 2026 election. This comes after Texas changed their congressional maps mid-cycle. You have Indiana looking at it, possibly Missouri. There's several other states that are looking at this, and elections are a year away. So in Illinois, it makes things kind of weird if you're going to change the maps because people already filed their petitions within the jurisdictions that the legislature approved back in 2021 that got an F grade for gerrymandering. Here's Governor J.B. Pritzker yesterday in reaction to California approving their map change, and could Illinois be next?
We've been looking at pairing with different states because if they're we don't think that this is a good idea. The redistricting across the country, not a good idea. But unfortunately, Donald Trump is trying to cheat. He thinks that redistricting mid-decade is okay. So he called up and told the governor of Texas that he ought to do it for him. And he went ahead and did it. That's why California had to. So we're watching what Indiana does. We may have to react to that. It's certainly something that people have considered here and the legislature has considered here. But we'll have to see what happens.
And if Democrats get control of Congress, Republicans say they'll pack the U.S. Supreme Court. They'll create Puerto Rico a state and Washington, D.C. a state, while you've got people in Illinois that have been pushing to split the state into two and create a new state for New Illinois. So the governor obviously is looking at the politics of this, and he's encouraging Democrats to do more. But President Donald Trump, of course, has a lot to say about the election as well, and even wanting to push to end the filibuster in the U.S. Senate, that 60-vote threshold to get over certain bills. because he says that Republicans have the best ideas for policy to help the economy grow and to spur on investment in the United States and public safety and foreign policy and so on. And he says the Democrats are just ardently opposed to Trump and will block everything that comes through. Here's Trump talking a bit about the election results and more about the politics as well.
But the communists, Marxists, socialists, and globalists had their chance, and they delivered nothing but disaster. And now let's see how a communist does in New York. We're going to see how that works out. And we'll help them. We'll help them. We want New York to be successful. We'll help them a little bit, maybe. For all of these failed and discredited, really discredited, if you think, ideologies of the past, their day is over, their grip is broken, and their time is absolutely done. The golden age of America has begun, and we are just getting started.
He went on to talk about the difference between the Democrats and the Republican parties.
But the communists, Marxists, socialists, and globalists had their chance, and day by day we're making America affordable again. It's going to be affordable again at a really record pace. And, you know, other people are going to take credit. All the mayors and all the governors, they're going to say what a great job. They didn't do a damn thing. Yet as we speak, the Democrats in Congress are trying to put all of this progress at risk and drag us back to the Biden policies of soaring prices, crushing energy costs, massive spending, open borders. Let the world come into our country from prisons and from mental institutions. Let them pour in. And rampant inflation. That's what Biden gave us, all of those things. With the reckless Democrat shutdown, virtually every Democrat in Congress has voted to hold the American people hostage in an effort to extort hundreds of billions of dollars in new spending.
So Trump also had a separate event, and he's talked about this in the past few weeks here, especially as the government shutdown continues. He wants Republicans in the U.S. Senate to end that filibuster. Now, the filibuster, people support it, saying it's a real check against bad ideas getting through both chambers of Congress. And keep in mind, I mean, the Senate, the way it's set up, every state gets 2 U.S. senators. By design, small states have 2 U.S. senators. The largest states have 2 U.S. senators. Really kind of helps level the playing field for this constitutional republic that we have. It's not a democracy. It's a constitutional republic. So you've got the U.S. Senate as a further stopgap from just simple majorities. They have the filibuster to allow for 60 vote thresholds in the 100 body chamber. So President Donald Trump, seeing that Democrats are, not only do they have a history of impeaching the president twice in his previous term, you also had, him being indicted a whole bunch and even being convicted in New York City. And a whole host of other things, just, the spying that happened on the Trump administration, the Russia collusion narrative that Democrats promulgated through the media using, U.S. Department of Justice infrastructure to do that. All of those things, Trump's Republicans, you're not going to be able to get Democrats to break through. So you have to end the filibuster to do things like voter ID nationwide, to do things like economic policy. He says that Republicans need to get across the finish line to grow the economy. So President Donald Trump is actively lobbying for Republicans in the U.S. Senate to end the filibuster.
They're going to make D.C. a state, and they're going to make Puerto Rico a state. So now they pick up 2 states. They pick up 4 senators, okay? You think you have problems? They're going to do all of the things. They're going to pick up electoral votes. It's going to be a very, very bad situation. And it's done. It's done. As soon as they attain power. Now, if we do what I'm saying, they'll most likely never attain power, because we will have passed every single thing that you can imagine that it's good and all good for the country. And there'll be no reason to. If we don't do that, people will say they're not doing much and they're in power.
So again, the president saying, if Republicans don't end the filibuster now and open the government and pass voter ID and a whole host of other things, then Democrats are going to take power in the 2026 midterm elections, and they're going to end the filibuster and pack the courts, create new states, essentially water down the Electoral College, according to Republicans. So a lot at play. And we'll be here to watch all of it, as Illinois being right in the middle of the country, and how Illinois might be a prognostication for what Democrats in Congress may want to do. So it's right here, Illinois in Focus Daily. Continue with the headlines at thecentersquare.com. Get the newsletter by signing up. And if you've got a few bucks laying around, you can donate as well. We're a nonprofit newswire service, so we definitely can use those donations. All right. It's Illinois in Focus Daily.